Hey everyone, before we jump into the episode, just a quick audio insert here. At the time that this episode was released, the IMDb for it had not been posted yet, and we mentioned the actor who plays the first servant in this episode, who does, we thought, an incredible job. The actor's name is Ian Ho, and that wasn't posted yet in IMDb, so just throwing that in here now before we get started. The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code with 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. I don't know. Okay. The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home. Why do I keep missing that? Try that again. The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character. The Enterprise crew is drawn into the internal politics and culture of planet Majalis when the ship intervenes to prevent the kidnapping of the planet's first servant, a child and holy figure of the world whose ascension is needed for the planet's safe transition of power. Pike is also reunited with a past lover, but as he and the crew begin to learn, there is a dark secret lurking in the Majalis society. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe Companion, presented by Fansets. This week we see Uhura training for security and blowing up an alien ship. We get to revisit M'Benga's daughter Rukia, see floating cities, and see how much we can just violate the Prime Directive. Just Yvette and I today, as Mike will be taking a much-deserved break from podcasting, and we might be shuffling our guest list, which we'll announce coming up. In the meantime, hello. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Great.
I'm doing okay. I know this might be, quicker with just the two of us.
I think so.
But it'll be a quick dissection of the episode. I enjoyed it, but I had mixed feelings about this one.
I agree.
I know. Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit.
Library computer, data being received.
If you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Discovering Trek. Or on Facebook, you can join the conversation on Camp Kittimer. After a few simple questions, our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, will let you in. A reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Strange New Worlds episode, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Mouthful. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus and watch the episode and head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to the spoilers.
Episode 106 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, aired June 9th, 2022. It was written by Robert Wasserman and Bill Wolkoff and directed by Andy Armaganian. So, what did you think? What did you think of episode 106? You said initially that this wasn't your favorite one so far. I feel like the same way, but I wasn't sure exactly why at first.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not my favorite. It didn't... the rest of them, I was like, yes, I want to watch this again. This is great. And this was like, oh, this is good. I was like, all right. It's all right. I mean, it had a nice story, but I don't know. It was okay.
It was okay. Yeah.
It was okay.
I felt like I like those Prime Directive episodes that really pull on you. And first of all, there was kind of no like I guess we could just jump into the episode at this point, but like so we get introduced to this child who has been kidnapped, or there's an attempted kidnapping, and we get to the Enterprise intervenes and everything else. And I like that later on in the story, like basically Pike has no reservations about just being like, you're wrong, this is wrong, I'm going to physically intervene to stop this from happening. And I enjoy these episodes that want to like pull on this hardest part with us, is this desire to like intervene, maybe even by force, and that's something we need to be careful of when we're in the Federation. But I wonder if sometimes like the episode is just like the thing that they pull on you to want to intervene in is so over the top, like in this case literally child sacrifice, that you're like, okay, like it almost pushes it to such an extreme that it's like there's no nuance left anymore.
It's like I've been there, done that. Like I've seen this type of episode before, and it's like, we know what's gonna happen. I mean, I don't know, it gave me Borg vibes a little bit. So, I mean, it was kind of weird the way they put that together. But, I knew, he was going to be upset. I knew, you knew from him finding the lover, I knew something was up with her.
Yeah, she seems sketchy right off the bat. She seems
sketchy right off the bat, So, I don't know. It's like I've seen this episode before, not that it was a bad episode. There was nothing bad about it. It was a really well-written episode. It had really great points, but it didn't hold my interest like the rest of them. I wasn't ready to watch it again. I was okay with watching it once. That there was like, you kind of know right off the bat that something is going to be not great about this. And there are, I guess Pike in this case is kind of like seeing through rosy glasses because he's in love with this person and everything else, but it's like, okay, there's going to be something here. I didn't call at first that the father was trying to kidnap this the what do they call him, the first servant away from the society. So I didn't see that happening at first, and I didn't see the ship like exploding in the second part where it gets captured in the tractor beam and all of a sudden blows up, and I was like, whoa, okay. And like that, I didn't see that coming. I think those are those little things like that with the not knowing that the father was the one that was trying to keep his son from being the first servant. I think that was probably the best part of this episode. I think everything but the Pike part, I hate to say it because I love Pike so much, but everything but his part was my favorite part. The B and C story were also, Uhura in security, and her security rotation was just priceless. I thought
it was hilarious at the start that she's like, okay, we're gonna have you target the phasers. And I was like, that's a pretty big deal on training. Like, we're going to have you shoot at a ship and, okay, we're going to walk you through this phaser shot, and then just slices the ship right in half. And you're like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's training. It's okay.
No repercussions at all. She's just like, oh, they just moved into my shot.
Yeah, they moved into my shot. I don't know if she had like simulation training before that in terms of targeting the entire ship's weaponry and arsenal, but I was like, okay.
Like that never happens. I don't know. It seemed like that was something you were prepared for, and everybody seemed to be okay with that. I don't know.
Everyone was fine with it. Yeah, it's like, well, they shot at us first, so it's fine. So that seemed a little unrealistic, I thought. But anyways, I guess we needed it for plot point, and that one.
We did.
Yeah, it's also, this happens a lot in TNG. It was one of the things I was laughing about, how they meant to not destroy something and they blow it up so much. Worf gets yelled at that so much. So I was like,
it's always Worf's fault.
Yeah. Why did he blow someone up? But yeah, I laughed at another point where they had, there's like the security officers from the city are running around and they show like a top-down view, and I'm like, are there no railings in this city where you could just plunge to your volcanic death somewhere on the side?
Floating along.
Floating along.
I was like, oof.
And then for basic, and then again, it's kind of like for no reason, these cities require some kind of computer maintenance, and it can only run on a child, and it has to, so it felt a little contrived by the end. Yeah.
It was purely contrived.
I know.
The minute I heard Ascension, all I thought was Lower Decks Moist Vessel.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Was that the name of it? I think that was the name of it. Yeah, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
That child's gonna do that. Oh
Yeah,
no.
The child is done.
Yeah.
They're
I
not
was
going
like,
to
oh,
survive to the end.
yikes. And then what was the other one I was thinking of? When the bow breaks, is that the one? Yeah, when the bow breaks, it's TNG. When
Oh right, yeah.
They're just going about life. They're like this great. They got great science. Their worlds are. They believe their worlds are so much better than everyone else. But they got this. They got, what was it called? I forgot what it was called. The custodian.
Right.
I think that's right. The custodian. They don't know what it does. They don't know how it works. They don't know how to fix it. But they do everything and anything the custodian does. These people were the same. They didn't know anything. The machine wants him. The machine needs this. We'll fall out the sky if we don't have this child. We don't sacrifice this child. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
We haven't learned anything.
They'll learn anything.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's an interesting concept to think that we might become so reliant on a piece of technology that it becomes almost mythological in its nature. Like it's almost,
we're already there, my friend.
We're there.
It's called a phone.
Yeah, that might be very. The phone demands that I do this.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Something called Siri.
Yeah, I like that premise. It's interesting. And the custodian, I'm glad you brought out that episode. I think that's almost even more believable in a way, because it doesn't, like, they have to intervene because they literally kidnapped like Wesley, and members of the Enterprise crew. And so, and you have this machine, and it turns out the machine itself is, I think it's the radiation that's causing sterility on the planet, right? So they have their cloaking. So I think that's almost a better version of this episode, kind of in a way, because it's not like, in the end, it grinds children up. And so like, that it requires your intervention, really, in a way, morality speaking. But
that was a lot.
That
it got morbid at the end. That was
that poor kid.
Yeah, and the poor kid in the basket already. Jeez.
Yeah, all shriveled up.
Yeah,
and everything. And that's when he has that moment, like, oh God, that's gonna be me in the future. So she makes this, maybe we can get into that. We'll get into this a little bit later, but I have this point that she says where she's like, well, we're really no different from your society, right? Because that children are sacrificed in your society in order to make things better. And I was like, I don't see the parallel.
I didn't get that at all. I was like, did someone miss something? Because that's not what the Federation is, even in this time frame.
Yeah.
That's not what the Federation is. That was a long time ago, maybe, our time frame. But I didn't get that. That really put me off. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm glad you felt that way, because I was like, as far as we know, the Federation is supposed to be this kind of idyllic society that we created. And so she's trying to poke holes in it, but because the parallel doesn't exist in a way that we know of, I didn't really see what her argument was supposed to be.
I didn't. And I think that put me off on this episode a lot. She was trying to make a point, but there was no point to be made. I don't know who she was, and he didn't stick up for it. Why didn't he say anything? So I was really confused by this episode. I like I said, I watched it, and when I watched it the second time, I kind of just focused on Uhura and La'an, and then the kid, because the kid was the actor who plays the first servant was very good. He acted like a child, not like an arrogant little person. He acted like a child, and I really enjoyed him. And then I enjoyed his interaction with Rakia. I thought that was really nice. And the fathers getting together, I love that. That was a great. In the end, the father lost his son and decided, I got to help this man now. So I just focused more on that stuff because I didn't really get everything else that was going on. It wasn't believable for Star Trek in that universe. And I don't know.
Yeah, and I almost felt grumpy about it afterwards, because I was like, they made me love this kid, and they kind of like manipulated me to just feel terrible about it at the end, right? And then it asked the question, like Pike also had like no reservations about then stepping into this society and trying to stop things, and there wasn't even like a Prime Directive conversation there, which I thought they would have at some point, but because he literally just marches in and tries to assault their people.
Right.
And she keeps mentioning we're not part of the Federation. Like you literally can't.
She's been saying it since the beginning.
Yeah.
She's been telling him that since the beginning. But he, when your libido is involved, you kind of forget other things, because I thought that was a big part of it, because they even made him come down back to the ship to tell him the information that Uhura found out, because they realized that, he was, thinking with not his brain. So they said, well, we just needed you to come up to the ship. So, no one else, your friend there couldn't hear. So they all got it, but yeah, he was really, I think he was more disappointed in her. He might've felt like, he got taken advantage of also. So.
Yeah, and he wants to defend. He's like, well, there has to be some other explanation.
Yeah.
Right. But I think then as things progress, he realizes, oh, wait a second, especially when he realizes that other colony is separate and apart. It's actually not alien, right? They figure out that it's her people.
It's her people. Yeah.
I guess they're also freaking out about the fact that they're doing this to kids, and then we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. That is a lot to dissect, that society, and for them to get to that point where it's okay, that this is okay,
right?
Just so they could live the way they live.
That's rough. That's rough.
I feel a little grumpy too there, Matthew.
Yeah. That's how I felt about it. I was like, I feel grumpy about this, but I couldn't figure out if it's like, do I feel grumpy because the story did well or because it did poorly? And I couldn't figure that out. So I'm glad we got
I think it did both. I think it did poorly and it did well, because it made us grumpy.
It did make us grumpy. I felt like maybe it was a bit, it was a bit messier than the other episodes. Have felt so tight. So tightly written until this one, and this one felt like I said, or I think we both agreed, it just felt a bit contrived. I think by the end, I
think so. Yeah.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Fansets merchandise, as we know, is the leader in pin collectibles for Star Trek, but they offer more than that. In addition to Star Trek, you can find pins for The Big Bang Theory, Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
As a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using code TrekGeeks, which is all capitals with no spaces, at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the US on orders $30 or more. Fansets, our pins have character, and we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
Awards / overall message. What did we feel? What do we feel about this one?
Overall message. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not. What I will say. Know. I will give an award to our first servant.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely great job done by that character. I love M'Benga. And just there's so much like feeling in that character. So fantastic. And that story that we got to see a continuation of that story in this episode, I really appreciated, and maybe working toward a cure.
Yeah.
Would be great. But yeah, how about you?
So overall theme, I have no clue. But for awards, I do have, I don't know what kind of award it would be, but I guess family award, Rakia and Dr. M'Benga, mainly because I love a doctor and a kid, back to Beverly and Wesley, my favorite crushers. I hope that they, God, I hope they find a cure for her, because I would like to see her. Part of his life and everything. Yeah. So I love that. And of course, the funny is going to Captain Pike, because him trying to sound like Lieutenant Lohan in the elevator when he goes, a Regelian tiger pounces with no warning.
Yeah. It was really well done.
It was very well done. Better than, of course, I could do it. But I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I I just love, every time they bring something really, really funny that'll stick out. That'll be a line that we'll remember, for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I mean, like you said, the actor that played the first servant was great also. But for this episode, that's all I got.
Yeah, and I think like you had said, the episode would have landed better if we found some parallel that she was trying to poke at in the Federation, and Pike doesn't even have anything to say because he doesn't say one way or the other. If he was like, no, we've fixed poverty and we can help you, and that's why you should join us. That was the whole argument we were trying to make, is we could figure this out. But it doesn't go into a further debate. It's just sort of an awful thing to provoke him to having an emotional response, but it's not, that's unfortunate that way. But one thing I do appreciate about this episode, I was reminded when you brought up La'an, is I like that they're not keeping the characters in their individual silos, but are making them cross-pollinate with each other. So let's have Uhura do security training this episode. Right. She spends time with La'an, and you get these interaction between characters that we may not otherwise have. And that's like going through TNG now. You have some characters that just literally never interact with each other very often at all.
Yeah. It seems like mostly, maybe not. Well, Mbenga, last week he interacted with everybody, but usually he's down in sick bay, which is normal. But I do love the fact that it's realistic that a cadet would be going through all of those divisions, all those sections. And I love that every week we have to go, where's Cadet Uhura this week?
Yeah.
I love it. And I love that she's really acing all of these divisions and sections. She's like, okay, I can do this and I can do that. Yep. I love that. I think it's just awesome. And I think it's very realistic. Cadets have to figure out what they want to do. So
yeah. And kicking butt at it, because La'an obviously is hard to impress.
Oh, yeah.
And yet she's like, okay, you went. Oh, she's like, so you did the bare minimum. And she's like, no. Like I when she asked her to do those translations, right? So you just did the bare minimum. No. I went above and beyond enough to impress me.
I love that she's a Starfleet security who does not follow the rules. Oh my gosh. She was like, well, maybe not Starfleet regulation, but you got to do what you got to do. I was like, exactly.
Yeah, and I had thought maybe, because we got on this conversation the last couple episodes about what is the main a theme that might follow through in the episode. So I thought maybe that was going to be this one, is about rule breaking. Right. Because you have such a rigid society. It's not allowed to engage with outsiders. And we see that in terms of, there's 3 examples I could think of. There's one okay, I'm gonna take these data chips out of this ship, because La'an's sometimes you have to take, where she says, I liberated them. And she says, know when to bend the rules. That's what she had said. So then there's the society that's not allowed to interact with other people or help them in terms of sharing their medical technology. But then you have that father at the end, and he's maybe bending rules. And so I thought Pike was going to give them this passionate speech about maybe it's time to bend the rules, because you have this society that has left. But it kind of fell apart through it, because I thought that was going to be maybe the main theme of this episode, but it kind of went really dark super fast all of a sudden.
Yeah. No, like I said, it just gave me Borg vibes. I was like, all these little, I don't know what they were, fiber optics. Going into his face, and then they encased him in that metal while he was sitting. I was like, wow, is this? I'm not going to say it. It
was a bit Borgy, yeah, for sure.
It was a bit Borgy. I was like, okay, are we coming back here eventually? What's happening here? And she did say the next one was going to be a she. Did you get that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so I maybe they switch back and forth. I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I was thinking Borg Queen.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Borg origin story.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
So who knows?
Interesting. Okay. All right. So maybe some seeds there. Maybe this story will get revisited then.
I don't know why I think it will. I don't know, because it just seems like we should go back there, but I don't know.
Rescue our
something. I don't know, something.
First servant.
Yeah. Don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and of a lot of other perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks, where subscriptions start at low as $2 per month. For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is Trek Geeks, Rewind, Polytreks, 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, Science Station 2, with the first link and the newest addition to the network, Con Pod, about Star Trek conventions. You can find all these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
That wraps us for Strange New Worlds Episode 6, Lift Us for Suffering Cannot Reach. Episode 7 is entitled The Serene Squall. While on a dangerous humanitarian mission, the crew of the Enterprise stumbles into a harrowing game of leverage with the quadrant's deadliest space pirate. And if you're listening to this episode of Discovering Trek, our episode covering Serene Squall should already be out, because we're doing a double release this week so that we resynchronize with Strange New Worlds for Episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom. So thank you for your patience since we've been catching up on some editing. And thank you again for joining us here for Discovering Trek on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do.